Coming up later in the podcast.
In other words, how can this, oh God, become this? Or even this? Oh my God. Oh, you know what? I don't even know if I can upload this video. I don't know if I can. You guys are never going to let me live this down. Hello, everybody. You are watching the Magic Skeptic, aka Magic Dara, and welcome to another episode of A Magician's Thoughts. So if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know that this podcast is usually done in an audio-only format. So I've decided to branch out today and try it in video, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So without further ado, let's jump right into the topic today. And guys, I must admit, this is probably the most embarrassing video I'm ever going to produce. I've mentioned tangentially in the past that I used to be a dyed-in-the-wool creationist. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, guys, I was a proper Bible basher. I mean, let's just say that the indoctrination I experienced in my youth was incredibly successful. And, you know, I've talked about that particular indoctrination elsewhere. So if you're interested in that, you can check out my podcast on indoctrination, but just in case you don't know the background here. But suffice to say, I was raised in a Christian environment, went to Christian schools because there were no other schools in Ireland, basically. And I grew up believing very strongly in the existence of God. And then as I got older, I became interested in intellectually justifying those beliefs. And so I encountered various religious apologists, including people like Ken Ham, Lee Strobel, William Lane Craig, the heavy hitters of the Christian apologetics community. And they had an incredible influence on me. I must admit, they really had a significant influence on me. And I learned their arguments and I would frequently deploy them. And I did this all the way up to and including the age of about 18 or 19. And luckily, because of my interest in the arguments and intellectually justifying them, I eventually encountered thinkers like Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, and the classics, you know, David Hume, Bertrand Russell, and what have you. And so ultimately, and if you've been listening to this channel for any length of time, you know that I became an atheist. But I wanted to share with you guys my journey. And I wanted to share with you specifically a PowerPoint presentation that I created in my first year of university when I was still a diehard creationist. So goodness, guys, this is really embarrassing. But I randomly came across this PowerPoint when I was going through my files on my laptop the other night and just doing a bit of a clean out, you know, deleting a few things and whatnot. And I found this PowerPoint. So this goes all the way back to 2010. And I must warn you, you've been warned, this is the most cringy, most vomit-inducing PowerPoint that anyone could ever have created. But again, guys, you have to remember, I was only about 18 or 19 years of age. I was still a totally committed Christian and creationist. So yeah, I believed that God created the universe in 6 days and rested on the seventh. I thought evolution was garbage. And yeah, I was just totally fooled. I mean, I hate to use the word fooled because there may very well be religious adherents who watch this video and they might not feel like they were fooled, but I have no other word for it, guys. I was fooled. The arguments that I'm about to go through in this PowerPoint are ridiculous. And the only way you could ever possibly believe them to be true is if the person who was explaining them to you persuaded you using the techniques that are involved in religious apologetics, which, you know, maybe the religious apologists are not consciously deceiving people, but the arguments are very deceptive, almost like a magic trick. And I do see a lot of similarities between the activities of a magician and the activities of an apologist. There's always a trick. There's always some kind of a trap door in the argument that reveals what's really going on. And so all that acknowledged, let's dive right in here and take a look at this PowerPoint. And again, please be gentle with me because This is already a hard enough video to make without you guys piling on. So I share it with you in good faith. I share it with you so that we can all perhaps learn something from it, even if it's only to go through why the arguments are terrible. But I also share it with you to show that, you know, people change their minds, and somebody who was as hoodwinked as I was can come out the other side. There's light at the end of the tunnel. So if indeed you do have a loved one who is knee deep in religious apologetics, if they're a totally committed Christian and you think there's no way that you could change their mind, well, a lot of people might have said that about me, and here I am. So anyway, let's dive right in. And so it begins. Oh dear. Oh my God. This is really tough, guys. I hope you don't think I'm being disingenuous here. I'm not trying to feign how difficult this is. This really is difficult for me. Going back and looking at this really does open up a casket of unpleasant memories. Not to say that I was abused in any particular way, but I guess I just feel a sense of shame that I was so successfully hoodwinked. I feel a sense of shame that I was just completely subsumed by this. And I shouldn't have been. I should have known better. But I guess the battle for the mind really does begin in the cradle. And the Catholic Church got me good. You see, guys, when I was in school, I was an incredibly diligent student. I worked hard and I wanted to impress the teacher. So impressing the teacher, unfortunately, in a Christian school usually meant demonstrating your commitment to the faith. And so I was psychologically primed. I was the perfect candidate for them. You know, I really became a hardcore Christian as a consequence of my education, or the failures of my education, as I would argue. I don't think I was really educated as such. I was indoctrinated, and it's awful. But look, here we go. Evolution, I don't think so. Oh, what a gut-wrenching title, right? So Lee Strobel, who you can see there on the first page of the PowerPoint, very popular Christian apologist, very charismatic guy. And he had an immense influence on me. He's written a number of Christian apologetics books. The Case for Christ is one of them. And obviously, as you can see there, it was turned into a film. But let's see what I actually said. Now, remember, I presented this in the first year of my university training in an academic study of religions department. Now, what does that mean? Well, in an academic study of religions department, they study religion comparatively. And as I came to learn during my time on that course, the vast majority of the lecturers were atheists. They were non-believers. They were skeptics. They were academics. They were very highly intelligent people, not trying to infer, by the way, that being incredibly intelligent automatically means you're going to be an atheist. There's lots of intelligent religious people out there. But it just so happened that these academics were largely atheists or agnostics. And so I'm presenting this to them. I can only imagine what they thought of me. Oh, God above. Here we go. Evolution, fact or fiction? Oh. So, evolution states that all organisms developed from the same ancestor, microorganisms in the ocean. So far, so good. It looks like I have some kind of an understanding of evolutionary theory at this point. Oh, bear with me. This gets worse. These ancestors gradually changed over time, and each developed new distinct features, such as the ability to walk on land and to fly, etc. Again, so far, so good. These changes eventually led to an abundance of different species that we see around us today. Again, not so bad. Okay, fair enough. We could probably add some details here and there, but that's not the worst understanding of evolution. Simple, right? I remember what I wrote next. Wrong. So apparently, I knew something that the evolutionary biologists in the 2010s didn't. It is a wonder, dear listener, why I didn't win a Nobel Prize for science. Let's see what compelling argument Magic Dara or the Magic Skeptic had in 2010. What's that now? 11 years ago? Is it 2021 now? Goodness, I can't even remember the year. Suffice to say, it's over a decade ago. Let's see. The fossil record. Uh-oh. How can this be true if there is no fossil record to prove that such intermediate species ever existed? Oh my God, this is so bad. This is so bad. I'm sorry. Feel free to click out of this video right now. Guys, look, I don't know the names because they're very long, wordy words like astro or pathicus, blah, blah, blah. I don't know the words. I don't have them off by heart. I mean, I could look them up. Tell you what I'll do. I'm going to do that right now. So there's going to be a time jump here. I'm going to check this on my phone. I'm going to Google right now because obviously since then I've learned that there are in fact numerous transitional fossils that have been discovered. So hold tight and let's give you some names. Okie dokie. So again, I cannot pronounce these words very well, and I apologize to you, dear listener, for that, but I'm going to give it my best shot. But one of the best examples of a transitionary fossil is the Australopithecus afarensis. Goodness, that's a mouthful. But this is the hominid antecedent that links us with apes, essentially. So as it says here, the hominid Australopithecus afarensis represents an evolutionary transition between modern bipedal humans and their quadrupedal ape ancestors. That's just one example, but there are others. There's also the Pachytids ambulensitus. I'm sorry. I'm not a scientist, guys. Let's see if I can do one more just to embarrass myself even further. There's the Tiktaalik. Tiktaalik, I do know. I've heard Richard Dawkins speaking about Tiktaalik. And yeah, look, I could keep reading, and suffice to say, there have been many transitionary fossils discovered. And so my claim here that I made in 2010 in this ridiculous PowerPoint, or the inference at least, that there are no transitionary fossils, is just flat out false. But of course, I was simply using the words of Lee Strobel. I was just repeating what I had heard elsewhere. I was just a conduit through which Lee Strobel's apologetics were flowing through. But this gets worse. Simply put, without transitionary fossils to prove it, evolution is little more than an interesting theory. So bad. Guys, do not make the mistake I made in this PowerPoint. Can we just get this straight right now? Seriously. The word theory in science means fact. The way we use the word theory in general conversation is not how the word is deployed in the scientific community. When we use the word theory in common parlance, we usually mean guess, right? Ironically, we mean hypothesis. You know, if somebody has stolen a cookie from the cookie jar, I might say, I have a theory as to who may have done it. But that's the incorrect usage when it comes to the scientific domain. In the scientific domain, theory means fact. A theory is the highest cadence point that an idea can achieve in the scientific world. So, for example, if I take my phone and leave it go, what just happened there? We call that gravity, right? You know what we call that in science? How it's explained? It's explained through the theory of gravitation. And yet nobody is out there denying gravity. At least I bloody well hope not. So when we talk about the theory of evolution, we are talking about the fact of evolution. Change over time is a fact. So goodness gracious me, this PowerPoint is horrendously embarrassing. And then wait till you see this. In other words, how can this, oh God, become this? Or even this? Oh my God. Oh, you know what? I don't even know if I can upload this video. I don't know if I can. You guys are never going to let me live this down. You know what? I deserve this. jump into the comments below and tell me what an absolute idiot I was. Please do that. Please do that. Just jump into the comments and tell me on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the worst moron in the history of morons, and 1 being the most intelligent person in the history of the world, where am I on that scale when I created this PowerPoint? What would you rate me out of 10? Give me a rating, please. Give me a rating. I need to know. And, 11 isn't a number on the scale, by the way, before some of you clever people jump in and try to humiliate me even further. Well, let's keep going. Without these, oh my God. You see, guys, I just didn't know what I was talking about. I just didn't know. This is why skeptical inquiry, research, and evidence are so important. I looked at Lee Strobel's work. I looked at the work of William Lane Craig. I listened to their arguments and I thought, gee, that sounds convincing. That must be true. But that's not a good way to determine truth. Just simply listening to a charismatic person saying persuasive things. That's how you get conned. That's how psychics and hypnotists and mediums do their work. Right? Oh, man. It sickens me that I was so hoodwinked by all of this stuff. But oh, goodness, it gets worse. Earth, accident or creation? First of all, can we just address the fact that that's not actually a true dichotomy? There are more options on offer there. The only options aren't accident or creation. Maybe the world has just always existed. Not as in the planet Earth. We know there's good evidence to suggest that the Earth has an origin. There's also good evidence to suggest that our local universe has an origin, and that is the Big Bang. But we don't necessarily know the origin of the cosmos, right? We know the origin of our local universe, but this is still a hotly debated topic in science as to whether or not the universe is in fact eternal, or the cosmos more generally, I should say, is eternal or not. And I know I'm going to have theists in the comments, people jumping in saying that, oh, but if it's eternal, it violates the principle of sufficient reason and those kinds of things. Yeah, but then so would God, right? And appealing to God as a special category is definitionally a special pleading fallacy. You can't just say God is an exception to the principle of sufficient reason. God's existence is explained by itself. Well, I can just say the same about the universe. You can't just define your God as being a satisfactory explanation to the exclusion of all others. The point is, this is not a true dichotomy. In other words, there are more options on offer than accident or creation. But that acknowledged, what am I about to say here? I think you could probably guess. Does complexity suggest the existence of a creator? Jesus Christ. This is so bad. First of all, the short answer is no, it doesn't. Complexity is not how we identify design. And if anybody ever thought that that's the case, let me just demonstrate with some very basic examples that that's not true. I believe Matt Dillahunty of the Atheist Experience used this example in the past. And so I'm going to deploy it here just to convey the principle, because I think it's a really, really good one. But credit to Matt Dillahunty. I love you, Matt. You're an amazing representative of the atheist community. And I love your work, and you've had a huge influence on me, my friend. And if we could ever have a conversation, goodness, that would just be a dream come true. But that acknowledged, Matt one time said, if you take a rubber ball and a rock, and you ask yourself which of them is designed, if we're using complexity as our roadmap to design, the problem is that a rubber molecule versus a rock, the rubber molecule is actually far more simple at the molecular level. It's a far more simple molecule compared to the rock, right, at a molecular level. And so the rock is the more complex of the two. The rubber ball is the simpler of the two. And yet we know that the rubber ball is the thing that was created and the rock is the thing that is naturally occurring. So complexity isn't the pathway to design. It's not how we identify design. We actually identify design with reference to evidence, right? Or by comparing it to that which is naturally occurring. Okay? So when I posed this question back in 2010, does complexity suggest the existence of a creator? Again, I was just parroting the words of Lee Strobel and Kent Hovind and William Lane Craig and company. So let's go further and see what I said here. Earth is the only known planet that supports life in the universe. Sure, currently, albeit there is evidence that life may in fact have existed on other planets. We just haven't discovered the life yet. It contains all the correct criteria to support both plant and animal life. Sure, albeit only in certain parts of its surface. A lot of the planet is rather hostile to life. Might be an example of bad design there. Oh, never. These criteria are finely tuned to an incomprehensible degree, which defies mere chance. Assertion, assertion, assertion. You see, guys, this is just a claim that is not supported. This is nonsense. First of all, I haven't demonstrated that fine-tuning is a fact. Sure, there are facts about this universe that allow life to exist on one planet, right? But who's to say that we didn't just evolve to live in these circumstances, right? If the physical constants had been different, maybe different life would have emerged, right? See, it's just arrogance and hubris to assume that this is all for us because we're special and we were created in God's image. But, you know, even more fundamental than that, this idea that the physical constants are finely tuned assumes that they could have been different in the first place, which has also not been demonstrated. This level of precision points powerfully towards and is best explained by the existence of a creator. Again, I don't think I need to explain why that's nonsense. That which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed as such. Christopher Hitchens, everybody. Thank you, Christopher, because you are spot on. And these are just assertions, guys. Nobody would ever have to take them seriously. But again, in 2010, I thought that this was compelling, persuasive, and I thought that if somebody didn't accept this, that they were a moron. The irony. The absolute irony. Oh my God. Examples of precise design. Here we go, everybody. Planet Earth is the perfect size to hold a thin layer of mostly nitrogen and oxygen gases expanding approximately 50 miles above the Earth's surface. This layer of gases is essential for the existence of life. Yes, this layer of gases is essential for the existence of life as we know it. But who's to say that with a different compositional atmosphere that other life couldn't have emerged or evolved? You see, guys, we have evolved to fit the constants and the environment of this planet. The planet didn't evolve to fit us. It's precisely the other way around. Douglas Adams nailed the mistake that is occurring in this kind of thinking. He really nailed it. And I'm going to read a quote from Douglas Adams that I've pulled up on my phone here. And what Douglas Adams said is, and I quote, "This is rather as if you imagine a puddle waking up one morning and thinking, this is an interesting world I find myself in. An interesting hole I find myself in. Fits me rather neatly, doesn't it? In fact, it fits me staggeringly well. Must have been made to have me in it. This is such a powerful idea that as the sun rises in the sky and the air heats up, and as gradually the puddle gets smaller and smaller, frantically hanging on to the notion that everything's going to be all right, because this world was meant to have him in it, was built to have him in it. So the moment he disappears, catches him rather by surprise. I think this may be something we need to be on the watch out for." Douglas Adams is a genius. What an amazing analogy. And that's exactly what's happening here in this PowerPoint. I am simply laying out the idea that this hole, this jagged hole that I find myself sitting in, is perfectly designed to fit me in it, all the while not realizing that I'm a puddle of water and that I have actually adjusted to the contours of the hole. And this is what evolution tells us. We have evolved to fit this planet, not the other way around. So this slide, this PowerPoint I've created is just garbage. It's garbage. It is the product of a failure of skepticism. It's a failure to reason sufficiently. And again, I was hoodwinked. Absolutely hoodwinked. If the Earth was fractionally smaller, its gravitational force would not be sufficient enough to hold these gases. Just like the planet Mercury, life would be impossible. If this jagged hole were even a slightly different shape, the puddle, would not fit in it. Again, the same problem reoccurs again and again. If the Earth was fractionally bigger, the atmosphere would only contain free hydrogen, similar to the planet Jupiter. Life would be impossible. If the hole that I am sitting in were slightly smaller, I mean, my current size wouldn't fit inside in this. But again, the puddle has made the mistaken assumption that they can't just adjust to the size of the hole because they are water, because they are malleable. Does this illustrate intelligent design? I guess you could probably put a bet on what my answer is going to be. Still not convinced? Oh, I've got more evidence. Let's fucking get into it. Precise design. Oh, good grief. The Earth is located in the exact right position from the sun in order to support life. Puddle argument, guys. Again, it's just the saying. Who's to say other life wouldn't have evolved were the sun at a different location, or were the Earth further away, or whatnot? I mean, guys, I suspect it's an inevitability that we're going to find life elsewhere in the universe. The universe is incomprehensibly big. We will find life. We're already finding evidence that the chemicals for life, the constituent parts of life, are incredibly common in the universe. And it's only a matter of time before we find other life. But even if we didn't, that wouldn't make the theist case any stronger here. I'm just pointing out that, probabilistically speaking, we will likely find life elsewhere, which will make this argument even more ridiculous. It will make it even more ridiculous. Why? Well, because if we're going to make the case that this planet was so perfectly designed that life could emerge in it, well, wouldn't that argument just lose the wind in its sails if we discover that life is in fact quite common in the universe? This entire argument is based on a supposed unlikelihood. Who's to say that life may in fact be common? But look, if that's not convincing, let's just keep going and tear this to shreds in other ways. If the Earth was located any closer or further away from the sun, we would all either freeze or burn to death. I mean, guys, yeah, maybe human life, but have you ever heard of extremophiles? There are microorganisms that live in lava, for Christ's sake. So yeah, the sun could get closer to the Earth, or we could get closer to the sun if that were possible. And yeah, we'd die, but not everything would. Other organisms would survive. But you see, we're special, right? Again, it's the same erroneous thinking. This absolutely egotistical and arrogant human centrism, where we believe that we're the epicenter of the universe and that we're more important than anyone and everything else. Does this prove intelligent design? Still not convinced yet? Oh dear. The cosmological constant is the energy density of space. This force prevents the universe from imploding or exploding. Without this force, the planets and stars could never have formed. 100 million billion 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 billion. This is the fine-tuning of the cosmological constant. Again, a completely ridiculous argument, because the assumption here is that the cosmological constant could in fact have been different. And that is not known. Look, maybe there's a physicist out there or a scientist out there who can correct me, but my understanding is that it's not clear that the cosmological constant could have been different. And even if it could have been, who's to say that there's not a multiverse, right? Some of our current models predict a multiverse, in which case there might be many, many millions of universes, and we just happen to find ourselves in the one where the cosmological constant did in fact produce life. But that wouldn't be special. That wouldn't be astounding. And even if something is unlikely, I mean, the other real problem with this argument, even if it's the case that the cosmological constant could in fact have been different in this universe, that doesn't mean it's impossible that the cosmological constant would align with producing life. It's just one option on the roulette wheel. But that doesn't make it impossible that the ball would land on that number. It just makes it unlikely. But again, the thing that's being appealed to here is your sense of probability. And what's really being conveyed here is this idea that if something is very, very, very improbable, therefore we shouldn't believe that it could happen. But that's nonsense. Improbable things happen all the time, right? Every day somewhere in the world, somebody wins the lottery. Now, winning the lottery, the odds aren't 100 million, billion, 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 billion. But whatever the odds are, unlikely events do in fact occur. And who's to say that even if the cosmological constant could have been different, that we weren't just lucky and the ball landed on the number it needed to land on in order to produce human life? Why is that an unpalatable solution? Why is that so unbelievable? Really and truly, why is that unbelievable? And how does proposing an all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-loving, complex designer any better as a solution when there's absolutely no evidence for it at all, and at the end of the day, it's just an assertion? Invoking God to solve an improbability problem is just a joke. You might as well have invoked magic. So the odds of the cosmological constant producing life are 100 million, billion, 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 billion. But magic made it so that life would come about. That explanation has as much explanatory power as the God explanation does. And I defy you to come up with a counter to that. I don't think you could. So in conclusion, oh, Jesus Christ, I remember this. So if you haven't vomited yet, this might very well be the moment that you do. You have been warned. This is pretty lame. This is pretty pathetic. In conclusion, if you saw this on the beach, would you assume, 1, somebody created it? Or 2, it was created naturally by the waves? Oh my God. I'm going to have a pain in my face from slapping myself in the forehead by the time this video finishes. I trust and I assume, dear listener, that you can see the problem with that argument. But just to spell it out, just to really humiliate my past self. Hey, Dara from 2010. No, I wouldn't assume it was created by the waves. You know why? Because we have an immense amount of evidence that suggests that this was not created by random chance and the movement of the water. What evidence? Well, first of all, that's a word in the English bloody language, love. We know that language is a product of the human mind. It's a product of human cognition. So the fact that it says love would certainly indicate that a mind was involved. But then we also know that human beings tend, when they go to the beach, to draw things in the sand. Children do it all the time. So we have an immense amount of evidence to suggest that human beings engage in behavior that would produce something that looks like this. We also have an immense amount of evidence which suggests that this is in fact language. We also have no evidence of water ever creating something like this by accident. It's not clear to me how water could ever produce grooves just like that, right? This is just such a silly argument. And it is based on a plethora of misunderstandings and bad information. But of course, the appeal here is that this is complex information, so we know it is created by a mind. And the world is complex, so we know that must be created by a mind. Well, no, we don't identify design with appeal to complexity. There are some very complex things that occur completely naturally. Take the simple example of a snowflake, which forms spontaneously. The complexity of a snowflake, its structural complexity, is awe-inspiring. It truly is one of the most beautiful things in nature. It's an absolutely gorgeous natural fact about the universe that a snowflake can form spontaneously, and it does not require anything other than the laws of physics, right? Its complexity does not lead one to the conclusion that said snowflake was designed by a creator. And it would be an idiotic thing to suggest otherwise. And so, guys, that is the PowerPoint. I don't know what else to say on this other than do jump into the comments below and let me know what kind of an idiot I was. You know what? I'm telling you to be gentle. Screw being gentle. Be honest. Just be honest. Again, I've shared this with you here today just to show you from whence I came, essentially, right? I want you to see that even a dyed-in-the-wool creationist can escape, right? It's possible to see the light and change your mind. I'm going to tell you right now, if I, as strong a believer as I was, the dyed-in-the-wool creationist than I was, if I can escape it and see the light of reason and come out the other side and become a champion of reason or a supporter of reason, then anyone can. It really is the case. Anyone can escape this if I can. I really believe that. I really do believe that. And so, guys, thank you for indulging me in today's video. I hope it wasn't too sickening for you. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like on the channel. Your like makes the video much more successful. It makes it much more likely that the video will rank in search, that others might see it, and that my channel can continue to grow. And so that would be much appreciated. If you want to pay me for this video today, you can pay me by just clicking that like button. More generally, if you have been enjoying the content, do consider hitting the subscribe button. And if you do, don't forget to check the bell notification icon, because that way you'll be notified as and when my latest videos go live. But guys, thank you very much for continuing to support me on my journey. And I hope to see you in the next video. All the best. Bye-bye.